gentlemen, this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for this devotional. Today we're in Galatians chapter 1. I'm going to read verse 10. Paul states, "For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ." So last time we discovered that Paul is writing with this sharp tone in his voice, which I bet had some shock value for those who were reading his letter. But in this text, we learn the motivation behind that sharp tone, the why, right? He states that it's because he cares more about the approval of God than the approval of man. But we shouldn't understand this as him being uncaring. In fact, Paul's trying to do the most caring thing he can do. He cares more about the approval of God, which means he cares for them. You know, I believe most men have this weird, vain aversion for the approval of others. We don't publicly state it all the time, but we like the emotional lift that we get from, like, let's say, approval or applause or accolades, acceptance of others. But we have to be careful because this process is addicting, isn't it? If it repeats, the emotional bumps of approval can lead to an addiction of ourself, an addiction of pride. And if you become trained to need approval from others to maintain your identity, then any disapproval can lead to erratic behaviors and emotions. Yet it's the way Paul ends this verse that captures my attention. He states that if he did this from the wrong motivation, I, Paul, would not be a servant of Christ. Or said in the positive, from a good and godly motivation, I, Paul, am a servant of Christ. And get this is something only a very well anchored man, a man anchored in the identity of Christ, would declare. This is the identity of a man anchored in the approval of Christ and not men. When a man finds his identity in God, guess what happens? Everything else falls into place. It's rightly ordered, including his emotions and his behaviors and his motivations. So this statement right here at the end is not just, filler language at the end. It's a declaration of his identity in Christ and nothing else. Thus, man's approval or disapproval doesn't mean anything to Paul. I wish we were all able to say this, but becoming a man anchored like Paul ain't easy. It means learning to care less for the approval of the world and more about the approval of Christ. So today, I want you to take a small step toward this. Find a place in your life where you might be seeking the approval of maybe a boss or a spouse or a child or a friend, and lay aside the need for that approval by anchoring your identity in Christ. Move from anchoring your life in the shifting sands of the approval of people and mankind to anchoring it in the unchanging person of Jesus Christ. Fellas, I love you. I hope this helps. If it has helped you, share it with some other guy. Just send him the email. That's it. And with that, I'll see you right back here again tomorrow.